Welcome to Conversations of Hope, a podcast that shines light into the darkness of childhood sexual abuse. I am your host, Faith Ingram of Speaking Truth in Love Ministries.
And I am Michelle Viscuse from Journey Pink. We are both survivors of childhood sexual abuse, and we're sharing our healing journey to raise awareness and provide hope and support to other survivors.
We know what it's like to feel all alone with our secrets, but we also know what it's like to find freedom. We are breaking the silence that allows sexual abuse to thrive and using our voices to empower and encourage those who have experienced abuse.
Our goal is to create a safe space for survivors to find hope and healing in community. Thank you for joining us.
Today, we're going to be talking about self-care, and I know that a lot of abuse survivors that I've talked to have a hard time with self-care because we tend to be people pleasers. And the way that we deal with trauma are we freeze, we flee, we fawn, or we fight. And most of us either freeze or we fawn. And that's because we felt powerless in the situation that we were in, that we had to comply or we had to freeze in order to survive. And a lot of times we become people pleasers, which means that we put everybody else first and we put everybody else's need before our own need. And a lot of times we don't take time to take care of ourselves. And so today we're going to talk about what it looks like to take care of yourself and how do we do that so that we can be actually more productive and healthier people because we can take care of ourselves. If you ride an airplane and they tell you that if the oxygen mask come down, you need to first put your oxygen mask on before you put an oxygen mask on your child. Because if you don't take care of yourself, you cannot take care of your child. And a lot of times I know that I've neglected my self-care. And I think, well, I'm just giving out and giving out to help other people. But we do need to be concerned about our self-care.
Right. And it's no wonder that we aren't aware of self-care because we weren't trained to care for ourselves. We weren't trained to believe that our body is our body and it deserves to be honored and respected and taken care of. And so to me, that was a foreign thought, like that I would do that. And then the other thing was a lot of what I knew about self-care was go get your nails done, go get a massage, go get a coffee. Like, these are the things that you can do for self-care. Well, as a trauma survivor, I do not like massages at all. And when we were on our honeymoon, we paid a lot of money to have a couples massage side by side on a cruise, and you put your face into the pillow, and I cried the entire time. I hated it. And at dinner, everyone was talking about how they love their massage, and I was like, I hated it. I hated it. And I didn't understand why in that moment, but think about it. I'm in a dark room, I'm face down, and someone is touching me, and I don't want that. And I felt very vulnerable, and to the point that I cried the entire time. No one knew I was crying. Like, I didn't say it bothered me until it was over. And that's the other thing about self-care and people pleasing. We don't have our voice. And so I didn't feel like I could say, stop, you're hurting me, you're pushing too hard, whatever the case may be. So I think it's important to throw out of your mind what the media has told you self-care is, or what, people say is self-care, because what works for you may not work for me, and what works for me may not work for you. We're all individuals. We've all had a different trauma experience, but we all need to take care of ourselves, and we need to find the things that show us that we're worthy to be taken care of. Our body needs to rest. Our body needs to relax. and what does that for you. And so if you enjoy massages, then by all means, go get one. But if you don't, just because the world says this is a great way to relax and take care of yourself, if it's not doing it for you, then we need to find another way to promote self-care, to take care of ourselves.
Right. And I think the one thing that you said that stuck out to me as important is the first thing in self care is finding your voice and being able to tell other people around you, hey, I need to set boundaries here. I'm overloaded. I need to get away. I need to be by myself. I need to go talk to a friend. You know, those types of things, finding your voice and speaking up for yourself and recognizing, okay, I do need to promote my health, my emotional health, my physical health, and find out what that is, and then tell those around you, this is what I need, and help me to be able to do that. If it's going somewhere by yourself, and if you're overwhelmed with the kids, seeing if somebody else can take care of the kids for an afternoon so that you can have a afternoon to yourself to do whatever you need to do. And we talked several weeks ago about finding your circle of support. And I think that's part of self-care as well. Finding people that you can just talk to when you need somebody to unload on, so that you're not going to unload all of your stuff on your family, but you do have a sounding board and you do have people that care for you and are saying, okay, I'll be there if you want to just go do a girls' day or you just want to get away for a while. I'm here for you. And I think I have a hard time reaching out to my circle of friends because I don't want to inconvenience anybody. And that's another part of our finding our voice. We think that we're going to be inconveniencing somebody if we ask them to go do something with us or to do something. So we need to get over those feelings of insecurity and allow ourselves to say, you know what, if they're bothered by that, they can just say, I don't have time. We just oftentimes have such a low self-esteem
Mhm.
that we feel that we aren't valuable enough for other people to spend time with us.
Right. When you were talking about finding your voice, I was thinking about when I was giving birth and how the doctor, probably with all three children, because it was at Duke and they're a student hospital, so they have like a lot of students. And every time it was like, do you mind if these students come in and observe? And I didn't have my voice. And if that were happening now, I would be like, yeah, I mind. I'm completely vulnerable right now. This is hard for me, and I don't need any extra people in the room. But I didn't have my voice then. And so I was like, yeah, that's fine. Because I was already like panicked and frozen, and we're going to have to go to doctors. We're going to have annual exams, pap smears. We're going to have to go through things that are going to be difficult. And when you don't have your voice, it's hard to walk through that and say to them, this is what I need. This is going to help me. This is what's going to be helpful. And now I'm 50 years old, 51, and I didn't do it then. I didn't say it. I just pushed through. And you know what? We weren't created to push through. We were created to rest. And so finding your voice is so important. And if you don't have your voice right now and you don't feel like that's something that you could do, that is a huge reason to strive to heal, to open that box and deal with the trauma so that you can find your voice and you can set your boundaries. And that is a huge part of self-care. It's big.
Yeah. And you just used that example. It's it's funny because the same thing happened to me only with one of my children. When my daughter was being born, they asked if student nurse could come in, and you're in that vulnerable space and you want to be helpful and compliant, and I said yes, and they didn't tell me it was a male nurse, and it did make a difference to me. But then once they're in there, then are you gonna say, "No, I didn't want them to come in?" So, it is important to find your voice, and I think sometimes because of our childhood experiences and the trauma, we didn't have a voice then, and that carries over into adulthood. Self-care, I think the biggest thing is finding your voice and speaking up for what you need. And also in finding your voice to setting boundaries, saying, okay, I can't do this. I've got too much on my plate. The relationships with these people are not helpful for me. Because sometimes we have people in our lives that are actually toxic and they create more stress and more trauma. And sometimes we have to look at our friends and look at our relationships, and maybe it's our family because we can't choose our families. Sometimes we have to say, you know what? I I don't think that we need to go to these family get-togethers. I don't think that this relationship is the best for me. And setting those boundaries actually is part of self-care. It helps you to use your voice and set boundaries so that you can be who you need to be, so that you're not more stressed, that you're not dealing with other people's trauma added onto yours. So that's important as well.
Yeah. And sometimes when you've been swimming in toxicity all of your life, you don't even realize that the pond is toxic. And so you just keep swimming. And as you start to heal, you realize this water is not fresh, it's not clean, and I want to be in that pond. And so you switch ponds and you go into a fresh and clean place. And then you start to recognize what's toxic and how to walk away. But I remember not even knowing that there was a lot of toxic relationship in my life because that's all you know. And so setting those boundaries, realizing what's helpful, what's not helpful, it's hard. It's important, but it is hard to do. And so take a step at a time. Do the first thing that you can. Maybe it's, social media. Maybe it's things or people on social media that cause angst when you see it, or you feel that in your chest. You think about it and it's like, oh, let some of that stuff go. Let some of those people go. Let some of those friendships go and breathe. One of the things that I think was really helpful for me, and we talked a little bit about people pleasing, but part of my people pleasing nature was to be busy all the time. What do you need? What can I do for you? You want me to do that? Absolutely. Because I didn't have a voice, I couldn't say no. So if you asked me to buy Girl Scout cookies, I bought them. If you asked me to come to your Tupperware party, I went. If you asked me to bring a casserole for church, I did it. And you just do. And then on top of that, like being at work and being a business owner, I was constantly dealing with people. And so after I sold the business and went back to school, I realized that I am introverted, and I never knew that. All of my life, if you had asked me, are you extroverted or introverted? I would have said, I am extroverted because I'm always around people and I'm always doing things and I'm always busy and I'm always having conversations. So that makes me extroverted. But the truth is, when I did the test, I am not only introverted, I am like on this end of the spectrum, introverted. And what did I learn from that? I learned that I need time alone to recharge, that yes, I can show up for things and I can put myself out there and I can be on and I can talk to all these people and do things. But in order to recharge, I have to have time off. I need downtime. And that may be just pajama day, all by myself with a book. That may be no conversation, no texting, nothing. Like I just need to be alone. Again, it's taken me all of my life to realize that. I didn't realize that I was introverted and that I needed downtime. I never gave myself downtime. So a huge part of my self-care right now is giving myself downtime, especially now that I'm speaking or even recording the podcast. I'm putting myself out there. I'm doing things that are challenging and hard for me. So in order to keep the tank full, I have to recharge. And to do that, I need downtime. And so if you need to figure out whether or not you're introverted or extroverted, it'll help you know what is going to energize you and what is going to drain you. And that's the difference between the two. If you're extroverted, then being around people is going to energize you, not drain you. And that's what you're going to need. But for an introvert, they need downtime. But I think as a survivor, I never had downtime. And I was so used to being on and pretending like everything was fine and meeting the needs of others and saying yes to everything, that having downtime wasn't even an option. But now I'm making it a priority to, like, before I go speak, to give myself downtime. And after I speak, I give myself downtime. So it's little things like that, recognizing what you need and what you can do about it. Like how are you wired really? Not because of what trauma said, but how did God design you? How are you wired? And what do you need to recharge?
Right. And we're all different. What recharges you is different than what recharges me. But I'm also an introvert. So my recharge is to be alone and to get by myself and do something just for me. And it may not be finding a group of friends to go do something with. It may just be, and it might be going with one person, but not a whole group of people. And there are many things, whatever you do for your self-care, it's individual. What works for me may not work for you, but what works for you may not work for me. So find the things that you need to do for your self-care. And exercise is important for self-care as well, because it does impact your mental health.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times they say just going for a walk can do as much for a person as being on antidepressants, because it produces the hormones that your brain needs to get your mental state where it needs to be. Not that there's anything wrong with antidepressants when people need them. I'm just saying that sometimes we don't take care of our physical bodies. And so our mental health and our physical health is impacted by our lack of exercise, our lack of taking care of ourselves.
Yeah, I know when I was starting my healing journey in counseling, one of the things that I started doing was going on walks, and not really for fitness as much as to breathe, to slow down, to be in nature. And I would take my phone and take pictures. Sometimes I would listen to music, but sometimes I would just be in the quiet. And I would take pictures of beautiful things. It was as if I was hearing birds chirp for the first time. And I was seeing beautiful flowers bloom for the first time. And that's why, like pink skies and Journey Pink, like that's where all of that came from. Seeing that pink sunset for the first time and believing that God loves me. All of that got wrapped together. And when I would start chasing sunsets, and my husband's like, Michelle, the sun's been setting forever. This is what happens every day. I was like, I've never noticed it, because that's what trauma can do. You can go through life and you are just surviving. You're not taking in the beauty around you. You're not stopping to breathe. And so sometimes those nature walks can be the beginning of something incredibly beautiful. just looking at what's beautiful out there, taking time to notice. And another thing about self-care is connecting with that inner child and what you love to do. Is it paint? Is it write? Like, do you like writing? So start writing. If you wanted to paint, color, get some crayons out, let your creativity come through, and just connecting with the inner child is so important, and learning what do you enjoy? Like, if you don't like writing, then that's not it. But maybe you do enjoy journaling. Whatever it is, the different things that you can do that take care of you. Right?
Yeah, and I love walking on the beach and walking on nature trails, and they do re-energize me, and they do impact my mental health, my physical health. Just seeing God's beauty in nature and knowing that He loves us, I do think that that is a good way of self-care. But for some people, walking in nature may not be the best self-care for them, but just know that God loves you and that He does want you to take care of yourself. Because when you take care of you, then you can be more beneficial to those people that are around you, and you can have a better relationship with them as well.
You mentioned the beach and walking on the beach, and something I read recently is about grounding, and I've been trying it, but it's not the grounding that we talk about, like when you're in counseling and getting yourself grounded. It's literally walking outside, taking your shoes off, and just putting your feet on the ground. And in the article, it was saying that the reason we love the beach and we have that calmness that comes over us is because our feet are on bare ground, and that we can do the same thing like with grass or dirt, whatever, outside. Just go outside, take your shoes off. So I've been doing that. I'll fix a cup of coffee and go outside and stand while the dog is out running around in the morning. And it does just it calms you down for a minute. So anything that you enjoy, do it, try some different things. There's all kinds of self-care options out there. You can treat yourself to a nice warm bath. Taking care of our bodies is a big thing. So like a face routine is something I've started, and using an electric toothbrush, like little things that put me in front of the mirror and to say to myself, I care about you and you are worth taking care of, because we only get one body, right? And so, and our body's gone through a lot. And a lot of it's inside, it's internal stuff that's hurt and been harmed. And so finding that space to breathe, to rest, and find peace is so worth it when your body's lived with cortisol and adrenaline surging through it nonstop. We have to find ways to calm down and breathe. And self-care is a great way to do that.
We hope this podcast is a source of comfort and inspiration for those who are struggling with the aftermath of childhood sexual abuse. Thank you for joining us on this journey of hope and healing.
Please be sure to subscribe and check out our show notes for more information. See you next time on Conversations of Hope with Faith and Michelle.